Have you ever wondered why Good Friday feels so different from any other day in the church? Why is there no Mass? The altar is bare, and a profound silence hangs in the air. This day, more than any other, pulls us into the very heart of Christ's sacrifice. Welcome to the Heart of Catholicism YouTube channel, the Catholic path to peace, where God's faith changes our lives. Good Friday stands apart as the most solemn day in the Christian liturgical year, a day dedicated to commemorating the passion and death of Jesus Christ. It is a time of mourning, deep silence, and profound reflection. One of its most defining features is the absence of the Eucharistic consecration. The Church intentionally refrains from celebrating the central mystery of the Mass, a practice with roots in early Christian tradition, to draw all our focus to Christ's ultimate sacrifice on the cross. Instead, Holy Communion is distributed to the faithful using hosts that were consecrated the day before, on Holy Thursday. This solemn observance is not exclusive to Catholicism. Anglican, Orthodox, and many Protestant communities also mark Good Friday with deep reverence, highlighting its foundational importance and the shared memory of global Christianity. To understand today's liturgy, we must travel back to the first 3 centuries of the Church. During this era of intense persecution, Christians gathered in secret. These were not the elaborate liturgies we know today, but simple, heartfelt assemblies. Believers came together for fasting, prayer, and reading the Passion accounts from the Gospels. There was no organized Good Friday Mass. Instead, these early communities engaged in spontaneous prayers, meditations on Jesus' suffering, and offered communal support in a time of great danger. It was during this period that the concept of the Paschal Triduum encompassing Holy Thursday, Good Friday, and Holy Saturday began to take shape, although it had not yet been formalized into its modern structure. The early Church's focus was less on formal ceremony and more on the raw, spiritual remembrance of Christ's suffering and death. The 4th century marked a monumental shift. With the legalization of Christianity in 313 AD under Emperor Constantine, public worship flourished, and the observances of Good Friday were dramatically transformed. The discovery of the true cross by St. Helena in Jerusalem elevated devotion to Christ's passion to new heights, establishing the Holy City as a premier destination for Christian pilgrimage. One of our most invaluable historical sources from this time is the Diary of the Pilgrim Egeria, written in the late 4th century. She vividly describes Christians gathering at the actual sites of the Passion, the Garden of Gethsemane, the Praetorium where Jesus was condemned, and Golgotha, the place of the crucifixion. Her writings detail long scripture readings, the public veneration of the wood of the cross, and powerful emotional expressions of sorrow from the faithful. These early Jerusalem rites, born from a direct connection to the historical locations of Christ's final hours, profoundly influenced the global Church. As pilgrims returned home, they brought these practices with them, and churches in other regions began modeling their own Good Friday liturgies on the powerful ceremonies witnessed in the Holy Land. As Christianity spread across the Roman Empire, the need for a more structured and unified liturgy grew. Between the 5th and 7th centuries, the Roman Church developed a distinct Good Friday liturgy that has shaped our modern observance. This liturgy was marked by several key elements. It included readings from the prophet Isaiah, specifically the powerful suffering servant songs, which foretold Christ's redemptive suffering. The Passion narrative was recited, with the Gospel according to John being chosen for its profound theological emphasis on Christ's kingship in his willing, self-giving sacrifice. A central feature was the Solemn Intercessions, a comprehensive series of prayers where the Church intercedes for the entire world for the Pope, and clergy for world leaders, for the sick, for the Jewish people, and for all of humanity. The veneration of the cross, inspired by the Jerusalem practice, became a central and deeply moving act of the Roman Good Friday service. It was during this period that the absence of the Eucharistic consecration became a definitive Roman tradition, solidifying the day's focus squarely on the death of Christ rather than the joy of his resurrection. The Middle Ages, spanning from the 8th to the 15th centuries, added layers of emotional depth and dramatic expression to Good Friday practices. The liturgy expanded to include rituals that engaged the senses and the heart of the faithful. Processions reenacting the Via Crucis or the Way of the Cross became common, allowing believers to walk with Christ on his journey to Calvary. The practice of veiling crosses and statues during Lent was established, culminating in a dramatic unveiling of the cross on Good Friday, symbolizing the revelation of salvation through suffering. Another powerful medieval addition was the reproaches, or improperia, a series of poetic and sorrowful dialogues between Christ on the cross and his people, expressing his profound sorrow over their rejection. Good Friday became a profoundly communal experience, where believers physically and emotionally participated in mourning and devotion. Music, particularly the solemn and ethereal tones of Gregorian chant, deepened the sense of solemnity and contemplation. Medieval spirituality also placed a strong emphasis on Christ's humanity, encouraging a more personal, emotional, and empathetic engagement with his suffering. The 16th century brought the Protestant Reformation, which prompted the Catholic Church to convene the Council of Trent to address doctrinal challenges and standardize liturgical practices. The reforms of Trent had a lasting impact on the Good Friday liturgy, making it more uniform across the Catholic world. The Mass of the Presanctified, a term used to describe the liturgy that included the distribution of pre-consecrated hosts, was officially codified and its structure standardized in the Roman Missal. The primary goal of these reforms was to ensure doctrinal clarity and liturgical uniformity, preventing regional variations that might lead to confusion or theological ambiguity. While this brought a welcome consistency, it also led to a more rigid and formal ceremony. Trent's reforms ensured that the solemn structure of Good Friday was preserved for centuries, cementing its place as a cornerstone of the liturgical year. By the early 20th century, the Good Friday liturgy, while venerable, had become heavily formal, often performed with the laity as passive spectators rather than active participants. Recognizing the need for renewal, Pope Pius XII initiated significant Holy Week reforms in 1955, breathing new life into the ancient rites. One of the most important changes was restoring the Good Friday celebration to the afternoon, aligning it more closely with the Gospel accounts of the time of Christ's death. This change made the liturgy more accessible to working people and reinforced its historical context. Furthermore, the reforms strongly encouraged the active participation of the faithful, shifting the focus from a ceremony performed by the clergy to a communal act of worship. Ceremonial elements were simplified to place a greater emphasis on the core components, scripture and prayer. These pre-Vatican II reforms were a critical step, paving the way for the broader liturgical renewal that was to come. The Second Vatican Council in the 1960s ushered in a transformative period for the entire Catholic liturgy, and Good Friday was no exception. The Council's reforms aimed to highlight the scriptural richness of the service and foster full, conscious, and active participation from the entire community. Today's Good Friday liturgy, officially called the Celebration of the Lord's Passion, is a direct result of this renewal. It is structured in 3 distinct parts: the Liturgy of the Word, the Veneration of the Cross, and Holy Communion. The Liturgy of the Word prominently features the reading of Isaiah's prophecy of the suffering servant and the powerful passion narrative from the Gospel of John. The Solemn Intercessions were expanded and their language updated to reflect modern concerns, including prayers for Christian unity, religious freedom, and those who do not believe in God. The Veneration of the Cross remains the emotional centerpiece, often involving a procession where the faithful come forward to kiss or touch the cross. Finally, Holy Communion is distributed from hosts consecrated on Holy Thursday, completing the rite. Vatican II also encouraged greater ecumenical sensitivity, updating the language of the intercessions to foster respect and dialogue among different faith traditions. The liturgy of Good Friday is rich with powerful symbols, each carrying profound theological meaning. The cross is the central symbol, representing not defeat, but Christ's ultimate victory over sin and death and his infinite love for humanity. Its veneration is the emotional heart of the service. Silence, which pervades the church from the end of the Holy Thursday Mass until the Easter Vigil, expresses deep mourning, contemplation, and the spiritual emptiness of the day the Son of God died. The liturgical color is red, symbolizing the blood of Christ shed for our salvation and the sacrifice of martyrdom. It is a color of both suffering and love. The bare altar, stripped of its cloths, candles, and decorations, is a stark visual symbol of absence and loss. It represents the grief of the Church as Christ has been taken away, and it reinforces the sense of waiting in anticipation for the resurrection. Finally, the chosen scripture readings from Isaiah and John are deeply symbolic. Isaiah's prophecy highlights the redemptive power of the suffering servant, while John's passion narrative uniquely emphasizes Christ's divine identity and sovereign control, portraying him as a king who willingly embraces the cross for the salvation of the world. While the core liturgy of Good Friday is universal in the Catholic Church, its expression is beautifully colored by diverse cultural traditions around the world. In the Philippines, the day is marked by large processions, dramatic public reenactments of the Passion, known as Sinaculo, and other penitential acts. In many parts of Latin America, communities stage elaborate and dramatic public recreations of Jesus' final hours, drawing entire towns into the streets to follow the path of the cross. In Europe, the observance is often characterized by a more solemn silence, fasting, and powerful musical traditions, such as performances of Bach's St. Matthew Passion. While Catholic, Anglican, Orthodox, and Protestant observances differ in their specifics, with Catholics emphasizing the veneration of the cross orthodox, Christians participating in elaborate lamentation services, and Protestants often holding reflective services focused on scripture and hymns. They all share a common focus on the solemn remembrance of Christ's sacrifice. From the secret gatherings of the early Christians to the grand liturgies of today, the observance of Good Friday connects us to the most ancient roots of our faith. Despite centuries of evolution and reform, its core purpose has never wavered: to pause, to remember the profound sacrifice of Jesus Christ, and to enter deeply into the mystery of our redemption. The history of this day is a testament to the Church's living tradition, always seeking to help the faithful encounter the crucified Lord in a more meaningful way. We invite you to continue this reflection in the comments below. What are your family's or parish's Good Friday traditions? How does this liturgy speak to you personally? Thank you for joining us on this journey. Please like this video, subscribe to our channel for more content, and let us know what topics you'd like us to explore in the future.